Middle-earth has a staffing problem. For an age supposedly about hope and courage, the place is crawling with monsters, tyrants, and middle management henchmen who would sell their own mother for a slightly nicer cloak. So, tonight we are ranking them into 7 levels, from the least to most powerful. Quick roll call for who's in the firing line. Dark Lord Melkor, the first and worst. Dark Lord Sauron, his star pupil. The Balrog, a demon with a commute. Saruman, our corrupted wizard. The Witch King of Angmar, deadliest of the Nazgul. Gollum, a tragedy with teeth. Shelob, a spider with a feeding schedule. And Grima Wormtongue, who is here, frankly, for the comedy. We are not ranking by who wins a fistfight, as Tolkien did not really do fistfights. We are ranking by raw spiritual and worldly power, the dread they cast, and the dent they left in the world. Tonight on Fool of a Tube, we open the Rogues Gallery. Boots on. Level 1, we know his uses, and yes, they are few. We have to start at the very bottom, with a man whose entire power set is talking to a depressed king until the king gets worse. Grima, son of Galmod, was chief counselor to Theoden of Rohan, and secretly Saruman's mole, paid in the promise of Eowyn's hand, and weakening the old king with whispered poison, both metaphorical and, Tolkien hints, literal. He had no magic, no army and no sword skill. His superpower is being in the room. The dark part is that the single most consequential thing Wormtongue ever did, he did entirely by accident. Fleeing to Isengard, he was caught by the Nazgul, panicked, and told them exactly where the Shire was and how to reach it. The Ringwraiths had been hunting blindly, but one frightened bureaucrat handed them the map. His exit is pure Wormtongue. Cornered in a ruined shire, kicked and mocked by Saruman one time too many, he snaps and cuts his master's throat, then gets shot full of hobbit arrows on the spot. The last casualty of the War of the Ring died doing the only brave thing he ever managed, roughly 4 seconds too late to enjoy it. Saruman corrupted by Sauron, Sauron corrupted by Melkor, and Wormtongue at the bottom, corrupted by a wizard he could not even stand. Evil, in Tolkien, is ultimately small. Grima is just the smallest. Moving up to level 2, Gollum outranks Wormtongue, and the reason is the emotional baseline of the story. Smeagol was a river hobbit who murdered his friend Deagol for a shiny ring within minutes of seeing it, then spent roughly 500 years in a cave talking to himself and eating raw fish. Physically, he is pathetic, losing a wrestling match to Samwise Gamgee. Don't come at us. So, why is he above Wormtongue? Because Gollum is the load-bearing villain of the entire saga. He is the only living thing to carry the One Ring for centuries and not become a wraith, and his appetite for it is what saves the world. At the crack of doom, Frodo fails. He claims the ring, and the quest seems to be lost. And then, a starving creature bites the ring off his finger and dances himself straight into the lava. Tolkien was blunt that Frodo failed at that moment, and that the quest only succeeded because of mercy shown to Gollum long before. In letter 192, he goes further. The other power then took over. The writer of the story, meaning Eru himself, nudged Gollum over the edge. Tolkien's verdict is one of the saddest lines in all his letters. Gollum was pitiable, but he ended in persistent wickedness, and the fact that this worked good was no credit to him. He is the villain who was also a victim, but also accidentally became the hero, yet deserved no moral credit for it whatsoever. Level 3, we reach the first villain who could comfortably eat everyone below her, and also a few above. Shelob is a giant spider in the pass of Cirith Ungol, and Tolkien is careful to tell us she is no minion. She is the last child of Ungoliant to trouble the unhappy world, descended from the primordial gloom spider who helped Melkor drink the light out of the two trees of Valinor. Her hide turns blades, her venom drops a grown hobbit into a death-like coma, and she has squatted in those mountains since before Sauron laid the first stone of Barad-dûr. Here is the detail people miss. Shelob does not serve Sauron. Tolkien tells us that there is no alliance between them, only a common hatred, and Sauron, with a flicker of dark affection, thought of her as his cat. A monster so old and so hungry, the Dark Lord of Mordor kept her on as pest control. Her weakness is her mother's, another case of greed without strategy. She serves no one, feasts on her own offspring, and wants only to swell until the mountains cannot hold her. A business plan with no exit. She loses to a gardener with an elf bottle and a borrowed sword, which is humbling for an eldritch horror, but it does not diminish the importance of what she was. Moving into level 4, we cross a line from creatures of the world into spirits that predate it. Durin's Bane, the Balrog of Moria, is of divine origins, and a Maya. The same order of being as Sauron and Gandalf, he is an angelic spirit of pure destruction that fell into shadow, serving Melkor in the First Age, then hid in the deep places of the earth for thousands of years after his side lost. The dwarves of Moria dug too greedily and too deep, woke him up, and learned a hard lesson about property surveys. What makes the Balrog rank here is what it took to stop him. Instead of an army or a special sword, it took another Maya, Gandalf the Grey, who fought him from the bridge to the roots of the mountain and up to the peak, and died doing it. The Balrog is the only foe in the trilogy that kills a wizard, even if Gandalf got better afterwards. For all that terror, he has maxed out muscle stats, but is in no way a mastermind. A very large, very angry fire alarm the dwarves installed by mistake. Top 4. We have left the monsters behind. From here on, everyone had a will and used it to ruin things on purpose. We're going to kick level 5 off with the Witch King of Angmar, the chief of the Nine, a great mortal king of old, hollowed out by one of Sauron's rings until nothing remained but malice, a crown, and a voice like a closing tomb. He conquered the northern kingdom of Arnor and broke armies by fear alone. At the siege of Gondor, his dread was so total that all fled before his face. He gets forth because his power is borrowed. He is terrifying as Sauron's blade, and almost nothing without the hand that holds him. But what a blade! He stabs Frodo on Weathertop, faces down Gandalf at the broken gate of Minas Tirith, and rides a winged horror into a battle he is fully expected to win. And then he meets the only prophecy he ever bothered to believe. Long before, the Elf Lord Glorfindel foretold that the Witch King would not fall by the hand of man. He misremembered it as invincibility and announced, "No living man may hinder me," the kind of overconfidence Tolkien borrowed from Macbeth. Then Éowyn pulled off her helmet, said, "No living man am I," and a shield maiden and a hobbit killed the deadliest servant a Dark Lord ever made. Always read the terms and conditions. Level 6 and taking 3rd place, he is the saddest fall on the list, because Saruman actually started on the right side. Kurumo, called Saruman the White, was chief of the wizards, sent to Middle-earth to rally the free peoples against Sauron. He was a Maya of immense subtlety, head of the White Council, and the foremost authority alive on ring lore. His signature weapon is his voice, a near-physical enchantment that made listeners forget what was said and remember only that it sounded true. He ranks above the Witch King for one reason. The Witch King was a tool. Saruman was a craftsman who decided to build his own tool shed. He studied Sauron to know the enemy, fell in love with the enemy's methods, bred his own Uruk-hai, and very nearly took Rohan from a single fortress. Tolkien noted that had he found the One Ring, he would have forged a great ring of his own to challenge Sauron directly. His ending is a masterclass in diminishing returns. Stripped of his color, cast out of his order, reduced to a beggar called Sharky, then murdered by his own abused serving man in a ransacked shire. The second greatest wizard of the age died face down outside a hole in the ground, killed by the one creature he ranked below himself. Power, it turns out, does not protect you from being insufferable. Before we discover who's taking the gold home, if you are the kind of person who pauses the film to argue about whether Balrogs have wings or not, you are amongst your people. Subscribe to Fool of a Tube, where we settle nothing but sight everything. On to level 7. We are up to the two who actually ran the show, and in second place, Sauron. Do not let the second fool you, though. Sauron began as a Maya, too, a lieutenant of Melkor, and over the ages became more concentrated than his master ever was. Tolkien's notes are explicit that Sauron in the Second Age was, effectively, greater than Morgoth was by the close of the First, because Melkor had bled his power into a whole corrupted world, while Sauron poured his into a single, controllable object. That object is the whole strategy. By forging the One Ring, Sauron made himself an empire's worth of power he could wear on one finger. It let him dominate the bearers of the other rings, extend his life, and rule by proxy. The most efficient act of villainy in the legendarium, and the single dumbest, because he put his soul in a piece of jewelry and then lost the jewelry in a river for 2,500 years. That is the paradox of Sauron. The same move that made him nearly unkillable is exactly what got him killed. Burn the ring, and you burn most of him with it, leaving only a mere spirit of malice that gnaws itself in the shadows, in Gandalf's phrase. He is the greater villain of the actual story, the eye, the armies, the plan, and only number 2 because of the being he learned everything from. So, coming up trumps is the source of all of it. Melkor, later named Morgoth, the black foe of the world. Everyone else on this list is downstream pollution from one original poison. Melkor was a Vala, one of the powers who sang the world into being, and the mightiest of them granted a share of every other Vala's gift. Then he chose discord. Instead of merely corrupting a kingdom, he corrupted the raw material of reality. Orcs, dragons, Balrogs, and Sauron himself are all, ultimately, his work. The fan-favorite detail is what his power cost him to spend. To control the world, he poured his own being into all of it, what scholars call the spreading of Morgoth into Arda, until the very dirt of Middle-earth carried a trace of him. Lesser beings quailed at the rumor of villains far down this list. Melkor in his prime could daunt his own brother Manwë, the second mightiest being in existence, with just a look. Here is why he is number 1 and not Sauron. Sauron wanted to rule the world. Melkor wanted to unmake it and rebuild it as himself. It took the combined might of the Vala, the elves, men, and a half-elven mariner in a flying ship to cast him into the void. And the war that did it sank an entire continent. You do not get a bigger villain resume than we had to annihilate the map to file the paperwork. There it is, bottom to top, a deserving 8th place, Grima, the henchman who saved the day by getting scared. 7th, Gollum, the saddest accidental hero in fiction. 6th, Shelob, the spider so old the Dark Lord kept her as a cat. 5th, the Balrog, a demon with a very long nap. 4th, the Witch King, undone by bad reading comprehension. 3rd, Saruman, who plagiarized his way into a beggar's grave. 2nd, Sauron, who filed his soul in the wrong drawer. And 1st, Melkor, who looked at a perfect song and decided it needed less. Tolkien kept saying in different voices, "Evil in his world is never creative. It only ever corrupts, copies, and shrinks." Every villain here is smaller than the good they tried to spoil. Thank you for climbing the rogue's ladder with Fool of a Tube. Tell us in the comments if you think we got the order wrong, because we already know some of you are sharpening a Morgul blade over the Balrog placement. And tell me who we rank next. The 9 Nazgul? The great dragons? The many bad decisions of Denethor? We already know the tomatoes are up there. Until next time, keep your counsel wiser than Theoden's, your minds shallower than Durin's. And if a charming stranger offers you a ring, a job, or a slightly too good promotion, get it in writing.